Welcome to Nitty Gritty Sports Talk Show. It is Sunday, May 10th. Happy Mother's Day to all the women out there. We appreciate everything you all do. Without you, there's no us. I'm your host today, Keith PJ, and I'll be filling in for the good brother Roscoe. Nick, what up?
What's going on? Happy Sunday.
Keys, how you living?
What's going on, y'all? Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Let's go.
For sure. So let's get right to it, fellas. Today we have the founder of 26 Marketing Agency, Rashida Gayle. How you doing today, Rashida?
Hey guys, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for your time. Before we begin the interview, thank you for assisting us with that interview with Justice Hill. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. I definitely try to look out for local up-and-coming podcasts and get my athletes featured on them.
For sure, and he was very stand-up, so we appreciate Justice's time that day, so thank you. So
No problem.
We'll get right to it. We understand you were born in Jamaica, but you spent your childhood in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Talk to us a little bit about your hometown and how it has played a part in your development.
Okay, I will. I'm going to do a really quick, brief introduction of myself. So obviously, I'm Rashida Gayle, the founder of 26 Marketing Agency. We represent professional athletes and personalities for marketing. We're responsible for all off-field or any marketing endorsements, appearances, philanthropy, etc. So back to your question. Yeah, I was born in Jamaica, and obviously American football isn't a thing in Jamaica. But I moved to the States when I was about 7 years old in Fort Lauderdale. And when I went to high school, I was the football manager for all 4 years of high school. So I really got some good insight into the sport. I used to go to combines. I would be at school for hours until 6, 7, 8 o'clock p.m. And I got a lot of volunteer hours out of it. I think almost 400 or 500 volunteer hours
Wow.
total in my entire high school career. So that's kind of how I got accumulated with the sport. And then I went to Florida State and I visited the campus. I was doing really well academically. I've always done well academically. Let me not say I used to, because I
Talk
still
to
do. But I went to visit the campus. I visited Florida State, UF. I believe I went to UCF or USF and and I really loved FSU. I fell in love with their campus. It just gives you like this homey vibe, this home feel.
So, Rashida, for our listeners, what did you major in at Florida State?
Majored in political science and women's studies, and that has nothing to do with sports. But when I initially went, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a gynecologist. So I started majoring in biology. I was like, oh, I love women's studies, so I'll pick up that major too. Just spending my parents' money and spending all this loan money until I got to a point where I was like, yeah, biology isn't for me. I want to do sports. And I went to go find out what I needed to switch to sports management, but I'd already done so many credits with my biology major that I was going to be charged out of state fees after a certain point of credits were accumulated. So I decided then to pick up political science, and I had already finished my women's studies degree, and I began to work in the sports marketing department at Florida State. So I did that for 3 years. I did an internship with them in addition to administrative work. I worked at the front desk, and then on weekends, I would work at football games and other sporting events that the school hosted. So that's kind of how I got into the sport. That was my experience at Florida State, but all of that started really with me being the football manager for all 4 years during high school.
Wow, that's tough. Rashida, I'll just start off by saying my wife and my in-laws are Jamaican, so big up Jamaican, and I was a
Big up.
poli-sci. Yeah, I was a poli-sci major too, so you're already good in my book. So that was good to hear. But I wanted to ask you, you kind of alluded to breaking into the sports industry. Expand on that a little bit, and also tell the listeners about some of the challenges you faced along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So really breaking in, I think I got my first opportunity when I worked in the sports marketing department. I really got the opportunity to see how everything worked in the industry. College athletics very much mirrors the professional leagues, and so they take it just as seriously with sponsorships and administration and coaching. I mean, coaches are being paid 6, 7, 8 million per year, so it's just as lucrative of an industry. And so I got a great opportunity to shadow some of the executives within the marketing department and really kind of get some hands-on work. But a lot of it had to do with relationships and honestly, some confidence in myself and some luck. All of that played a part. Like you don't lose one, you don't get one without the other and be successful in sports. But essentially, I graduated. We'd won the national championship at FSU. So, the Florida State, the 2013-14 Florida State team that won that BCS national championship with Jameis Winston, who won the Heisman Trophy that year,
Yeah.
was known as, if not the best, one of the best football teams like ever. I think about 19 guys went to the NFL, and I think like 13 still currently play in the NFL. So
It was some heavy
almost
hitters on
every
that team.
starter, yeah, they had heavy hitters. But a lot of the starters um, ended up going to the NFL and even some of the backup guys. So I was able to build relationships with all of these guys. I was really good at just building relationships with athletes, not just football players, but I was friends with the basketball players, the women's basketball players, volleyball players, etc. I just had a knack for building relationships with them. And I know I wanted to get into the side of sports that was personable and that was focused on relationships, but I didn't know in what capacity. So I graduated school and I was looking for a job, couldn't find a job, looked for some internships. I got a few internships, and it was literally the same thing I was doing in college. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bet on myself and I'm going to start my own company. So I asked two guys that I went to school with if I could be their assistant. And they were like, sure. So I'm doing all of this assistant work and for little to nothing dollars. Like I am not balling at this point. And I see an opportunity to really take on the marketing and create opportunities and build brands. And one of my clients, we went into the off season together, and I thought, okay, let me see if I can do this. I'll look for some opportunities in his local market where he played, where he's from, and where he went to school. And ended up doing really well or fairly well that year, where I was like, okay, this is something I can actually do. Like I can really focus in on the marketing because I knew eventually I didn't want to be an assistant. So long story short, this athlete ended up doing extremely well. It was two Pro Bowlers, ended up going to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
They did lose 28-3 to the Patriots. That lead and it switched. Yeah, it was
That was
so
a tough one.
terrible.
That was a
That was
tough
a
one.
tough one, y'all. That was a tough
That was
one.
very
It
tough.
definitely was.
We were rooting for
But
the Falcons.
It was tough for me. I
yeah,
had
I
money
think
on it.
everybody was. Ooh, that's the worst. See, I don't put money on games, y'all, because it could go either way.
You ain't lying
Yeah.
about that.
But yeah, so it was the flip of a switch because before he was a Pro Bowler, we were already implementing marketing and branding strategies. And so once he became a Pro Bowler, I'd already been in contact with so many companies that worked with the NFL, that were local companies, etc. So ended up making him seven figures off the field and
Wow.
really realized like, oh shit, this is a job that I can do. My company was then acquired by the former firm that I was just with. At the time, it was TLA Worldwide, and I worked with them for 3 years, ultimately branching off about a month ago and starting my own agency.
That's definitely what's up. So how important is it for branding and marketing for today's athlete?
I personally think it's really important, especially for football players being behind the helmet, they're unable to really connect with fans from a facial level. I mean, you don't know who Matt Ryan is maybe walking around Atlanta, but you'll definitely know who Dwayne Wade was walking around Miami.
For sure.
So because their face is hidden, they don't get as much exposure. And in today's world, social media and digital media on a whole is playing such a huge part in marketing. Companies are finding that these authentic influencers are able to really bring in revenue from any followers or fans that are following them. So it's super, super important if an athlete wants to have a brand to be extremely active on social. If they want to make any type of money or monetize their brand, to be consistently active and to continuously be releasing content. I think that is the only way um, an athlete can be successful in today's time for marketing. If you totally ignore the social media and digital media aspect of it, you will not be successful. Companies are really looking for you to be committed to your brand and building your brand before committing to you.
Wow, that's great insight, Rashida. So you are known as the first black woman representing NFL and MLS players independently. You briefly alluded to it, but talk to us about 26 Marketing Agency and how it got started and what it has to offer to athletes.
So 26 Marketing Agency, I feel I'm still creating the feel and look and the vibe that I wanted to have, but essentially I want to create something that extremely innovative and full of young people. I want to get out of the mindset of, oh, we're just going to represent the first pick off the board in the NFL draft or the first round player because he's popular right now. We really want to look at athletes who have personalities because we're recognizing that we have to do less work if the athlete is committed to their brand and we're not forcing the issue. And so they're creating the content that needs to be created. They're having fun with their fans. They're interacting, they're engaging, etc. But not only athletes, but influencers as well. That's a space we definitely want to get into and really capture that market. It's wide open. Also, esports. There's so many up and coming markets now, especially in the digital space, that everybody who's in marketing is trying to figure out a way to really make the space innovative and change it and bring in like some new culture, basically create a new culture. So I think that's really what 26 Marketing Agency will be about, embracing and creating this new culture with athletes and influencers and really building brands that last for a long time.
Sounds good. So you mentioned branding. The NCAA has recently introduced some groundbreaking news allowing collegiate athletes the ability to use their name and likeness for profit. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some things that college athletes could do to, or things that they should take in account as far as these new privileges?
Okay, so I would say so to answer your first question, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think 10 years ago, when celebrities and athletes were the focus of the marketing space or how companies use talent, they were able to really leverage that their fans not having social media and be able to reach a wide audience. But now with influencers, that has changed the game so much. You can use someone who has a million followers and more engagement than your average celebrity. Um, and get them to do a media campaign for you or a marketing campaign for you for little to no dollars, right? Compared to what like your top A-list, B-list, C-list celebrity would charge. So companies are like, okay, we have the option of influencers just as much as we have the options of athletes, professional athletes, and celebrities. Now allowing the NCAA college athletes to, come into this space and monetize it, I think it's only going to breed more competition and it's going to dilute the market. And this is not a it's a bad thing, but it's not. I don't want to take away from the fact that athletes or NCAA athletes shouldn't have the opportunity to use their name or own their name, image, and likeness. I think that is absolutely necessary and much overdue. But with that being said, they're already coming into a very diluted market with influencers and celebrities and professional athletes. So all a company is going to do is say, okay, I can pay this Pro Bowl running back $500,000 for this campaign, or I can pay this NCAA athlete $100,000 for this campaign, and they have the same reach, especially in the South.
I
Gotcha.
see what you're saying. Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot more options to spend less money, and I think everyone's super excited about the fact that they will be able to make money, but I think it's going to dilute the market because as an 18, 19, 20-year old, you don't really understand what it means to sign 100,000 versus 500,000 because you may not be, super cognizant of your worth.
You don't
And
know your
you
worth,
don't,
right?
yeah, and you don't have a 5-year, $10 million contract coming in either. So it's not, you're taking anything you can get. If they're paying you 20K, you'll take 20K, even though that deal might be worth 100,000. So I
True.
think that's going to definitely change the market. And it's the same thing influencers have done. The $1 million influencer who isn't making money off sports contracts or music contracts, etc., will take the $20,000 because, what is their day job?
Definitely.
That's good
Their day
information.
job is being an influencer. So they're taking anything, whereas the athlete or the celebrity's day job is to either play sports or it's to be a celebrity, sing music or do award shows or be a comedian, be an actor, whatever the case is. They're getting money for an actual job and then building a brand outside of that. Influencers are only brands. So although they're very impactful, I think that it absolutely dilutes the market.
Definitely. So keeping with the financial part of it, talk to us a little about financial literacy and how important that is for today's athlete.
It's really tough to ask an athlete who is under 25 to be the best they've ever been with their money. And this is the time that they're going to get the most money probably ever in their life, right? But I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was in my early 20s, like I got it. Like, yeah, I needed to save, but like I'm still trying to have some drip. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm
for
still
sure.
trying to like, you know, do what it do. So I
Hmm.
totally understand the culture too feeds into that, especially the African American culture or the minority culture on a whole definitely feeds into looking good, feeling good physically. But it's so important, I think, for athletes to just rise to the occasion. And then when you get that opportunity to make millions of dollars, you just have to be able to handle that. You don't really have a choice. And that's very unfair to ask of an athlete because they need those years to come into that money and learn how to use it and lose it and make it back, etc. Athletes don't get the opportunity to do that. They're just slapped from, they're going from making no money in college, or wherever they're learning or training, etc., to being given 1 million, 2 million, 3 million off rip. So they don't have any idea of what does this look like? Like, do they know that 50% of this is pretty much going to taxes? Then they have to pay agent fees or any other fees that come along with that. And then they have to save half of that money and pretty much live a basic lifestyle. Like they don't see that when they see $1 million or $5 million in their account. So it's so important for athletes to just surround themselves with good people who keep them humbled. I think that's really important. Understanding that your life doesn't end at 25. You're going to have many more years to live, and so you want to make that money last. It's really difficult to grasp that idea at a young age, but that's where wisdom comes from. And as you grow older, you really learn like, hey, I should really put money away for rainy days, or I should have a plan in place. I should invest, and I should understand what investing is, etc. That's not necessarily my field, and so really what I try to do is just bring in as much money as possible on the marketing side so that my athletes don't have to use their NFL contract or their respective contract. If I can do a good job at that, then shit, you could blow that, but at least you
Right.
didn't spend your NFL contract or your league contract. If you're able to make it through your career, like Marshawn Lynch is a perfect example, where you do not spend that contract money, it really takes you a long way. Because if you're done playing the sport at 28, 29, 30, that's much different from 22, 23 years old.
Definitely. So as far as the marketing strategy, is I guess it's a two-part question. Um, do you have a marketing strategy, and is it different for each one of your clients?
So I can't be giving y'all my strategy like that because it's in my
That's the
intellectual
sauce.
property. You
We
feel
get
me?
it.
But I will say that each athlete does have. We approach each athlete different. There's so many factors at play: their position, the sport they play, the market that they're in, and their personality. We have to take all of those into account when really trying to figure out how we're going to market and brand an athlete. So, I would just say short answer to that question really is yes, we definitely approach each athlete different. And those would be the four biggest factors: location, the sport that they play, their personality. And there's one more I mentioned, I forgot, but I mentioned it earlier. So hopefully y'all were listening.
So, Rashida, for the first time in NFL history, more than half of the players selected in the first round of the draft were represented by black agents. How important is that in today's society? And congratulations on your client, Zach Moss, being drafted.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think it's really important. Typically when I'm recruiting guys, you always hear the phrase white is right, right? So any white male or even female that walks into a room buttoned up, collar, suit, etc., like you just feel like you can trust what they're saying. And
Yeah.
that's clearly not the case so many times. If you look at the statistics, athletes go broke faster than so many other people do. And you ask why, and a lot of it is because of the people they surround themselves with. And it's not always the agent's fault. I want to be clear on that. I'm not saying that why agents don't do a good job, but I think understanding the athlete's culture and background is really important to guiding them. And if you can't understand why they got their 11 homeboys with them at an event, then you're not patient, you're not empathetic towards the situation. And yes, they should probably not have those 11 homeboys at the event. But at the same time, if those 11 friends are in their hometown, they won't be doing anything. So if anything, they're getting some exposure. They're not on the streets, they're not selling drugs, they're not getting killed. They have something to look up to. And that's why a lot of athletes bring their friends around. I'm not saying it's right, but having that understanding of the culture is so important, and the background of the athlete is so important. So when you see Black agents rising to the occasion, I think this all started really with LeBron James. He hired all of his friends who were on their shit. Nobody was slacking. Nobody wasn't not working. You have Rich Paul, who is essentially one of the top NBA agents.
Yes,
you have
he
Maverick
is.
Carter, who is killing it on the business management, production, and marketing side. He sits on a bunch of boards. And then you have his business manager, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, who's pretty much been able to structure LeBron's life the way it is. So having those three guys, on his team, they're all Black, just gives you confidence as an athlete. Hey, I can hire people who look like me. Like, they know just as much of what they're doing as the white man who walks into the room. I think all the top 10 agents in the NFL, I believe 9 out of 10 are white.
Wow.
So there's a stark contrast and difference. It has so much to do with what's available financially, right? Are Black agents given the same opportunities financially as white agents? Are they supported by the firms as much as white agents are? And I'm telling you this, that they're not. And so that's why you see the top agents being white. So with the report that came out about Black agents representing a majority of the athletes, that's a really good transition to being diversified within the sport. And giving people of color the opportunity to elevate, in the industry.
Sure. I mean, look at the Rich Paul rule. The NCAA tried to prevent this. So I love the fact that we're hiring our own people and excelling in that. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking about diversify, diversifying and people that look like us, I think all of my co-hosts have daughters. So just wanted to ask, what advice would you give a young lady who will one day might want to follow in your footsteps in the sports world?
The first thing I would tell a girl is know what you're willing to compromise. Don't let that line look blurred, okay? If you're coming to work in sports, work in sports. Don't think you're coming to marry an athlete. If you're going to try to marry an athlete, don't ruin every other woman's hard work and dedication to upholding themselves, by saying you want to work in the sports industry. Know that those two are different. And the minute you combine both personal and business, it gets real ugly for you real quick.
Sure.
So that's the first thing I would say. And then the next thing I would say, honestly, is use your background to your advantage. If you're a person of color, if you're a female, those are differences that you can walk into a room with and be able to offer something that other people can't offer. So look at your differences as your strengths and, live in it, breathe it. Talk about being the elephant in the room. Talk about being, you're the only female in a room full of men. Obviously, you're able to bring different perspective and different insight than your counterparts. So I think really like those would be the two things I would focus on. And then just work really smart. A lot of people want to work really hard, but working smart is so key. Like, you just don't get into sports because you love sports. Like, what else can you offer? I have an internship program that I run, and I hate when I get these applications and they're like, oh my gosh, I just love sports and I want to work in sports. Yeah, but what can you do for me? That's how most people are looking at anyone trying to come into the industry. How can you be an asset? If you don't know how you can be an asset, you're not going to make it because it's a tough industry. It's really, really hard to not only get in, but to stay in, to climb your way up to the top. That shit is not easy. So you really need to be confident in yourself, know what asset you bring to the table, and use your differences to your advantage, and just make sure that you don't compromise who you are.
Okay. Uh, Rashida, where do you see 26 marketing, in about 5 or 10 years?
Wow, that's a really good question. I don't know, and I don't want to speak on it yet because I'm not gonna jinx myself. But I see some great things happening. I have like a big vision for the agency, and there's a lot that I want to put together. Starting your own agency is really, really tough because it's client services, so a lot of it is dependent on relationships. But I really want to create a space for young professionals coming up, especially, people of color. I'm open to everyone, but I definitely want to give people of color the opportunity to be hands-on in the industry. And so I just want it to be a young, diverse, innovative agency. And hopefully that grows into, one of the bigger agencies and more innovative agencies in the next 5 years.
Looking forward to it.
So you procured a Courtyard by Marriott deal for Falcons running back Devontae Freeman, amongst other deals, obviously for various athletes. Talk to us a little bit about that deal. What goes into securing a national advertisement of that magnitude?
So a lot of that is just staying on top of the brand. I reached out to Marriott, I think 2 years before the campaign happened, and I was just, pitching him nonstop, like, hey, what are you guys doing? What's your budget looking like? What campaigns do you have coming up? How can we get Devontae to work with you? Like, I just kept pitching him for 2 years, and the opportunity finally came about. So a lot of it was being persistent and consistent with the brand. And so, they sent over a really good offer. They hadn't worked with a talent in a long time that was an actual active player, but they're sponsors of the NFL. So
Wow,
that was just
Makes
like a
sense.
really good he was top of mind when they decided, hey, we do want to work with a talent. And that's what I always try to remind myself and any of my colleagues or anyone that's working under 26. They may not have the budget now, but they may have the budget in the future. And it's so important to, feed that relationship and massage that relationship so that when that opportunity does come about, you're the top of mind for it.
that's great advice, Rashida. So before we let you get out of here, talk to us about Bloom, your women's organization created for young professional women looking for a space to blossom into their best selves while also forming a sisterhood. How important is it to have that network of support?
Yeah, absolutely. So I co-founded Bloom with a really good friend of mine, Jasmine Johnson, who is a media and entertainment attorney at Warner Media. This happened, we came up with the idea, I would say about 3 years ago when we were like, we have these great group of friends. We have a great group of friends who are all on their shit. Like everybody's killing it. And it would be great if we could invite more women to this group and this circle and we could use our resources together and just like, bloom into something better. And so that's how we came up with Bloom. It's just pretty much an organization that strives to promote wellness, personal development, and service is really important as well. We just want to encourage women to embrace their power, embrace their purpose and their value by just being the woman that they are, living the life they love, and making positive contributions to the world.
Wow, that's great, Rashida.
Thank you.
Actually, I have one more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where'd you get the nickname The Plug?
So growing up, like I would say college and beyond, like people just called me the plug because I plug people into everything. Like if someone needed something or they asked me of something, like Rashida would be the one to get it done. So the nickname just grew on me. Like I've always been able to not only plug in like friends, but family and my clients, etc., into opportunities. I'm very resourceful. I know how to find deals. I know how to just like anything that you're trying to do. I know who to reach out to. I'm really quick and fast in my mind in that way. So that's how I got the name.
You get it done.
I get it done.
So, so on behalf of Nitty Gritty Sports Talk, Rashida, we appreciate your time. To all the mothers out there, once again, happy Mother's Day. And we'll see you all again tomorrow with Ricky Harris, professional basketball player on. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Rashida. Please take care.
Brand activations, business openings, recently engaged or any new life event that deserves a celebration? Start planning with Penn Jones Events. Owner and principal planner Paige guarantees a fun and stress-free planning experience, managing every event aspect, including budgets, timelines, vendor negotiations, event design, and more. Penn Jones Events is a full-service wedding and event planning company based in Maryland. We curate extraordinary events tailored to you. Let's start planning today. For a free 30-minute consultation, visit ppjevents.com.
This ad is brought to you by Lavelle Body. Lavelle Body is an all-natural, handmade skin and hair care line for men, women, and children. So if your skin is dry, your hair is damaged, or your beard is having problems connecting, shop Lavelle Body today at lavellebody.com or DM Lavelle Body LLC on Instagram. Again, that's lavellebody.com or DM Lavelle Body LLC.
So let's get out of here for the night, fellas. On behalf of Nitty Gritty Sports Talk, we once again like to thank Rashida Gayle for giving us her time on this Sunday. Great insight, just an all-around great story, and we're rooting for her, and we know it's only a matter of time before 26 Marketing Agency is one of the top agencies in the country. So catch us tomorrow at 6 o'clock as we interview pro basketball player Ricky Harris, and we'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
No.